This show is sponsored by Pro-Life New Zealand. Welcome to the Pro-Life Guy. In this episode we're going to be asking the question, why is the bodily rights argument so dangerous? In two previous episodes of the Pro-Life Guy, I've addressed in some detail what's wrong with the bodily rights argument, and in a different episode, why Judith Jarvis Thomson's violinist analogy, which is considered the sort of seminal defence, if you like, of the bodily rights argument, is so problematic and flawed. In this episode, I want to look at why the bodily rights argument is actually quite dangerous and the logical flaws that present very serious dangers to the rest of us. There are three major flaws that I can see which present great danger and serious logical problems with the bodily rights argument. The first one is this: the bodily rights argument elevates a less important human right, the right to bodily autonomy, above the most fundamental and important human right of all, the right to life. The right to life is the pivotal human right because all other human rights depend on you being alive. If you are not alive, you cannot experience the right to freedom of expression, the freedom of religion, the freedom of association, etc., etc. That is why your right to life is the fundamental human right. But the bodily rights argument elevates a less important human right, the right to bodily freedom, above the most fundamental human right of all, the right to life. And that's extremely dangerous because effectively what you're saying is that bodily autonomy has become absolute. But in situations outside the womb, we don't consider that to be acceptable at all. Second danger is this: the bodily rights argument effectively suggests that your human rights are conferred on you or given to you by other people. Basically, if a bigger, stronger human being decides that you should live, then you will live. If a bigger, stronger human being decides you won't live, then you don't get life. But that's not how human rights are meant to work. Human rights are not yours because someone else has given them to you. Human rights are yours by virtue of the fact that you are a human being. And if you are a human being who is innocent, then you are entitled to your human rights. The most fundamental of all is the right to life. But what the bodily rights argument does is says, well, in actual fact, human rights are something we can choose to bestow on people if we want to, if we're in a position where we are bigger and stronger and able to do that. Now, a lot of feminists use the bodily rights argument, but I don't think they would support this idea of conferring human rights if a group of misogynistic men got together and managed to win a majority in Parliament and said, we are going to take away female freedoms. We're going to take away the female right to vote. In fact, we are going to say now in law that females are nothing more than chattels or property of men. Most feminists who are worth their salt would say, hold on, you can't do that, that's terribly unjust. If they turned around and said, well, in actual fact, it's not. We are simply following your lead. We are bigger, we are stronger, we have the majority. It is okay for us to decide what human rights you do or don't get. Most people who are sane and ethical would never accept such a scheme. So why is it that we accept the exact same reasoning when it comes to the abortion issue, and we have people saying, well, bigger and stronger human beings should get to decide whether or not smaller and more vulnerable human beings actually get human rights? And lastly, and most problematically of all, is that the bodily rights argument effectively does away with the fundamental principles that govern what human rights are and how they are supposed to be administered. Judith Jarvis Thomson, at the very beginning of her essay, A Defence of Abortion, which is considered the seminal sort of argument for bodily rights when it comes to the issue of abortion, argues and suggests that even if a fetus is a human person, then she believes her argument about bodily autonomy would still justify abortion. Now that's very frightening because what she's saying here is that your personhood no longer matters when it comes to human rights. What matters is whether or not, as I said previously, someone bigger and stronger actually chooses to give you human rights. Now this is a massive departure from where we have been previously as a human culture. Previously what we've said is this: if you are a human person, you get human rights. If you are not a human person, you're not entitled to human rights. So if you're a chicken, you don't get human rights, but if you're a young child, you do get human rights. But what we have here now is a group of people who are trying to say it doesn't matter what you are, just because we are bigger and stronger, we should be able to choose to do whatever we want to you. And that is a truly frightening development. Thanks for tuning in. I'll see you next time on the Pro-Life Guy. This show is sponsored by Pro Life New Zealand.